like to get started if we can. Welcome. Just as a byproduct of this meeting, as I said in our last meeting, it's very important that the confidence of the public be established, be reestablished, and everyone in the House recognizes and understands that the process is transparent. It's totally 100% honest, and that's really the point of these meetings, to get some feedback in an effort to better understand your program. So it's really informational on our part. In terms of a format, basically, what I'd like to do is and let me go through the format and before turning it over to some of the loan committee members. First of all, I'd like the loan committee members to have an opportunity to publicly make a statement if they choose, kind of better explain your thoughts, your feelings, and what's going on as far as your perspective. I then open it up to committee members, then to Warren and Washington County supervisors, then to members of the public, and I would ask that as much as possible, if we can direct questions to the chair, and in an effort to establish a reasonable order in the process. Again, thank you for your participation, for your efforts, and to start off, I would ask any of the loan committee members to maybe before doing that, maybe can we just go around the room and just identify who you are for the public record. If we can just do that, and then I'll come back to the board members. So.
Yeah. Walter Young, Regional Planning Board.
Harry Booth, the Loan Committee.
Beth Hunt, Hamilton County Treasurer, Loan Committee.
B. Peter Marshall, Loan Committee.
Tori Riley, Loan Committee.
Harrison Sangster, Loan Committee.
Matt Simpson, Supervisor, Town of Oregon.
Andrea Hogan, Supervisor, Town of Oxford.
Dean Molino, Supervisor, Town of Lake Luzerne.
John Strauss, Supervisor, Town of Queensbury.
Mike Wild, Town of Queensbury, Supervisor at Large.
Doug Beatty, Queensbury Supervisor at Large, representing Queensbury.
Claudia Bremer, I am a Supervisor from Ward 3 in Glens Falls, and I apologize that's a week early, but my questions are here for you. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Queensbury at Large, Supervisor.
Me.
Bob Henke, Chairman, Board 1.
Dave O'Brien, Washington County.
Richard, Supervisor, Town of Florida.
Town of Washington County Treasurer.
Matt Hicks, Washington County, Town of Granville, Supervisor. Dana Haff, Washington County, Town of Hartford.
Christopher Wolf, Washington County Administrator.
Ben Driscoll, Supervisor, City of Glens Falls, Ward 5.
Mike Swan, Warren County Treasurer.
Good. Thank you very much. Starting with Walter, maybe if you ladies and gentlemen would like to maybe make a public comment, observation, thoughts, questions, in an effort for us to better understand. And I thought this format was in an effort to make this as conversational, as non-confrontational as possible, and it's really an information gathering process. So,
I think the last thing I provided with you was a loan portfolio update, loan aging report, effective through May 18th. And that showed that we had 53 active loans for about $4.7 million and loans receivable about $3.4 million. Did you have a chance to look at these?
I did. I received this late yesterday afternoon, and while I was watching cable TV last night, I was scanning 700 pages of documentation. So I received this late yesterday myself, okay? So have I read it in detail? Absolutely not, okay? So, but thank you for providing the information. Mr. Tessier. Great. Yes, Mr. Booth.
Well, I've been involved with this for quite a number of years, and I've donated a lot of time and I don't have anything to be ashamed of as far as the loan committee is concerned. In fact, I'm really proud of what we've been able to do for our region and both of our counties, along with those that are neighboring counties. And and I think that we have to look at these loans, these applications that come to us. We, at least from my perspective, we receive them in the mail, so it gives us a chance to go over them. This is all volunteer work for me, and so I spend a lot of time going through the applications, going over all the information, the business plans that are there. Sometimes I admit they're a little bit sketchy, but I think that gives us a background before we go to the meeting. And for me, I live down on the other end of the district, and so it's really quite an effort for me to get to the meetings. I have missed very few of the meetings in the last 25 years or so, and we have to work with the information that we are given. And when we meet, we have an opportunity to ask questions, to get a little better idea of what these loan applicants are interested in doing and how they're going to do that. And I look at what they've got for collateral. I look at what they think they can generate as far as cash flow is concerned, and that's all part of a somewhat of a business plan on how they're going to be able to pay back the loan. And I think there's other factors that come into play, and a lot of that is where they are in the community. What service are they going to provide the community, and to what good is that to those of the community? And in some of these cases, I believe that these are business people who have been in business for a while. They've been taxpayers. And part of my perspective here is to look at what they've done. If they've been a taxpayer and they're looking at to expand or improve their business, then there's factors there that we have to look at, or that I look at anyway. And so there's a lot of things that go into a decision on whether we approve a loan or not. From my perspective, if it's on the desk, if I get the information, then I have to assume from the get-go that they meet the criteria. And unfortunately, I guess in the scheme of economic loans, we know there's a risk there right from the start, because they have to have a letter from a bank that says they can't get the loan anywhere else. So we know there's a risk factor. But the information that I have from the beginning, there's like over 160 businesses that have received loans just shy of $10 million that have already been paid back. That's a pretty good return for a $3 million pot of money that we started with. And right now, I thought that the number out there that we have of loans that are current was right around $4 million. That means that we've got businesses and people out there with these loans that are making their payments on a regular basis. We're getting payments back on $4 million. All of those include some interest. And so, I don't think we're in the business of making money. We're in the business to help economics in the region and to help some of our business people in the region. Warren County has a big factor in that, because a lot of these loans go to businesses in Warren County. Probably because there's more businesses in Warren County, with Glens Falls and Queensbury being major portions of that, there's a big percentage of loans that go into Warren County. We're doing a great job, as far as I'm concerned, helping the economy of this region. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to do, what the kind of money that we've been able to put back in the community, and the kind of businesses that we've been able to help. I don't know how I can express that any more than to give you my honest opinion about how strongly I feel about what we've been able to do. Are all the loans paid back? No. You know, but does that mean we haven't helped some of those businesses in this area to stay in business for a while? I really have to look at what we do in terms of economic development, and a big part of that to me is the sustainability of the businesses that have been paying the bills for the last 20 years. And if we can, those are important to me. And the money that we've been able to put into these businesses has gone a long way to helping these people continue to pay their taxes. So, Peter, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Harry. I appreciate it. Next.
Beth Hunt from Hamilton County. I haven't been on the loan committee I have been on the loan committee for just over a year and a half now. I have found it to be very good in what they do. I'm still kind of learning, but the information that's been provided to me to make the loan decisions over the last year, I find excellent. I've voted to not give out loans, and I voted to give some loans. So, as in the committee, we do look this over. I've only actually been to one loan committee meeting over the last year. A couple of them I had to do by mail, but again, the information is very thorough. It's provided to us, and I agree with this gentleman that, I've been on the Lake George Lake Champlain committee for quite a few years now, and new to the loan committee, but I've found it to be very above board, very revealing as to what there is out there, and I think it's a good program, and I kind of was taken back by all of this, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Beth. Peter.
Harry and Beth covered a lot of my thoughts too, and I can verify that sitting across from Harry many times, he really did his homework on these loan applications. I actually have been a non-voting member on the loan committee, and more or less an advisor, being familiar with the application process and the requirements and like the decline of credit by a bank that an applicant needs, as well as interviewing the applicant with other members of the committee that were there. I've only been active the last couple of years. When I say active, as an advisor on the loan committee, and I think it's a great organization. And without getting into detail, which I don't really have at this point, but I've been involved in the not the loan committee, but the organization for probably 34 years under the past director, Bill Davison and others, and I always felt proud to be helpful and participate with economic and financial activities of the Regional Planning Board.
Thank you, Peter.
On to Lori now.
We do have quite a process. I just want to preface this by we do not have loans that qualify for banks. So automatically coming in, they're an at-risk, and/or the terms that the banks are able to offer would make the project not happen here, but just the way that the project sits, albeit where their payroll is, or their cash flow is, or what size expansion. We've also proudly done a lot of gap funding with banks. So if an applicant and a business goes to a bank and they're putting a project together and there's some capital that needs to come up, we'll take the at-risk portion of that loan to make that project happen in partnership with the bank, not in competition with the bank. So there's some real defined lines. So when you look at the portfolio, most often 99% of those loans are at risk when we see them. There is a process. I will agree with Harry. There's loans that come through that we approve with conditions. The conditions are they need better collateral, they need a better position, they need to make sure that their life insurance, their homes are being included in what could be considered for collateral for collection. If you look at the committee, we have a really diverse, we often, with Harrison, he looks at every loan like a banker, and we have to remind him that these loans are not qualified through a bank. But Lou Tessier, I will say, when we have anything in Warren County, gets in his car, drives by, checks it out. He puts his ear to the street, sees what's happening. Our startup businesses, and I think anyone in the room can attest to this, 3 out of 5 startup businesses are going to fail in the first 3 years. We do a lot of startup loans, but we also encourage them to take the microenterprise class that both counties offer through CUNY Adirondack. Additionally, we've also done some loans with the Washington County LDC. We've done some great loans with them. Deanna has 4 pots of money. If somebody comes in with a loan and it doesn't quite qualify in one of her pockets, she'll call us and say, hey, I only have $50,000, they need $120, can we do this and do co-equal? So it's been a great opportunity for the existing businesses to do some expansions that may not be qualifiable, and I don't want to speak on the bank, but they have portfolios. They know what industries they want to lend to and what pockets of money. So each year that varies. When we have tourism, that hasn't been a hot pocket for banks. So we've had some tourism projects that have come in that aren't qualifiable by what's available. We've been able to make those happen, and they're really good businesses. They've been here paying taxes, and we've been able to bridge that money so that they can expand here, not just stay here, expand here. And that's job retention and it's job creation. So I'm going to echo what my fellow committee members say. I'm very proud of what we do. We do not take it lightly. There's been times that the collateral proposed has been declined, and we'll approve the loan under the condition that they provide us better collateral if possible. But we're not 100%. I don't think banks are 100%, and I dare say LDCs aren't 100%. But the bottom line is we really stay true to not competing with banks. We do not do loans that are qualifiable by the banks. Our banking communities put a lot of money in our communities. We have to be really careful about what we're doing to make sure that if it should go through a financial institution, it goes through that financial institution. I would also say that this could have been handled a little differently. My name's been on that website as a loan review committee for many years. My phone number hasn't changed, and my address hasn't changed. All of these questions, I would have been more than willing to sit down and chat with anybody about. So I thank you for this opportunity, but I wish it had happened a little bit before now.
Thank you, Tori. Mr. Sangster.
I'm not sure I can add anything additional to what my fellow loan committee members have added. We take our job seriously with the loan committee, both trying to look at the economic development and job growth of the potential project that's put in front of us, and also the merits of the project. You know, we certainly need to take a different look than a bank. This isn't a bank loan. This is a kind of a last resort, trying to help a business out, try to get a company started up. So certainly, as Tori, Harry, and Beth have all said, you know, they're riskier loans, without question, and that's the mission. I believe if we dig into the USDA grants that funded the loan fund, is to help economic development.
In distressed rural areas.
So I'll say thank you for having us here, and be done.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sangster. I'm going to first open it up to Ms. Bramer, since she has a commitment kind of coming up, and I took the liberty, Claudia, to thinking you were not going to be here this morning, so I hope that was okay in an effort for full transparency. So go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Tori. Your point is well taken, that people could have called you. I think that one of my biggest concerns was that it seemed so not transparent, and Mr. Young was not giving us answers and wasn't making it more available to us. I mean, we are the people who are appointing the members to the big board, your big board, and this loan committee just seemed like the secret behind the, like, let people open the curtain and see what's happening in the loan committee, because one of my concerns is, from reading the bylaws, it says you have committee, the big board has committees set up, and they make recommendations, and then the full board is supposed to vote on that. But it sounds like that doesn't ever happen, that the full board, that the loan committee has autonomy to grant the loans. And we weren't getting answers about what was happening with those loans. If you're the ones making those decisions and not the board that we appoint, that was concerning to me. So I guess some of the questions I have on here, maybe you don't have standard loan terms.
We do. I believe we do. So there's acquisition of property, there's equipment. We do allow inventory on a light scale for the smaller ones, but there is accountability as far as what these loans are. So when we look at those, Walter has pre-screened these applicants before they even come to the loan review committee for approval. So we have an accountant, we have a banker. After we do our yes with the conditions or whatever, it then goes to a legal firm. And the legal firm will look everything over, make sure it's qualifying within the terms of the loan program. So if it's an acquisition of land, equipment, there's different longevities, 5 to 7 years for the length of the equipment, 10 to 15 years for property. So it will vary, Claudia, depending on what you're using.
That was one of my questions when you brought up about conditions. I thought, well, who's following up on your conditions that you made to your approval?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you're telling me the law firm is doing that.
So the law firm approves all of the UCC filings. Whatever they're going to hold for collateral, our law firm takes care of all of that on the closing of the loan. And then I believe Walter has an annual, as with any of these USDA or CDBG loans, they all have an annual reporting. So you reach out to your loans, you make sure that they're where they're supposed to be, and you follow up on the job creation and where
Okay,
there is an
okay. Yeah, we
annual.
have not seen annual reports on loans, I don't believe.
I don't believe that, each company does their own reporting, so I don't know if that would be something that would be in the...
It may not be consistent, but yeah, we should. What about my concern that that the committee really should be making recommendations in the full board?
If you look at other LDCs, and I don't want to misspeak because I haven't been in Washington County for a while, but Washington County has a board, and they also have committees, and the loan review committee, if it's up to a certain amount, Dana, Matt, I don't know how it is.
$150,000 has to be approved by the full board. Anything under $150,000 is approved by the loan review committee. But it's reported out. Each loan is reported out to the full board.
And Walter, does the full board, I just wanted to, because I'm not sure on that, and I can only speak to the loan review committee part of it.
Do we, under your bylaws, maybe Walter can answer this, which permanent committee of the Regional Planning Board is what we're calling the loan committee?
It was the Eastern, known at that time as the Eastern Adirondack.
Okay, so if you're so the loan committee is that committee. Your bylaws say they're supposed to get permission from the full board. There's no separation of dollar amounts, like you have discretion with under a certain limit. To me, that's a problem that we need to fix. I'm willing to yield the floor. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. I really mean that. I know it's not easy to always show up, and maybe under these circumstances, it's a little contentious, but let's hope it's not. When people are, you're all volunteers too, and that says it right there in my mind. But when public money is being loaned out, scrutiny to the nth degree is required, in my opinion. And it's been so confusing to even figure out who's on the board, who's not. And this is no slam against Walter, but it's probably been the most contentious and non-performing director that's supposed to report to people I've ever seen. I'm blown away by how many roadblocks were put up just from us trying to get information. We're trying to figure this out. So before we get started, can you tell me how long you've been on the committee? Because, again, who says is on the loan committee is not the people, some of the people that are here in front of me. So as usual, this is confusing as mud. So Harrison, how long have you been on this loan committee?
I want to say it's around 9 or 10 years.
9 or 10 years. Thank
Took
you.
over for Joe Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you. Tori?
I believe, Doug, I'm like 2009, and I, at the time, was the Washington County LDC president, and I Mr. LaPointe. And I'm not sure if it was Joanne or Don. I apologize, which supervisors had appointed me to the loan review.
And you were both appointed by supervisors, by the full board. The full board being the Lake George Lake Champlain Regional Planning Board. They approved both your appointments?
I will apologize. I don't know.
I don't know
I
that
was
answer.
requested to come on as someone else from the bank was retiring out of the bank.
Okay, so you guys said, I'll volunteer to come on, but we don't know if you were approved by a board?
I was asked to come on by our vice chair that was at that point the vice chair of the regional planning board, and I had reached out to Walter and I took the position because I know we both had loan funds and that we could somehow work together, and when Don asked me to go, Doug, I just...
Okay. So Walter, I assume that the full board, the Lake George Lake Champlain Regional Planning Board, approves of any new member on the loan committee? So they do. So that's a vote taken by the full board.
It's a recommendation made.
It's a recommendation made, and the full board votes on whether they want to accept Torrey or Harrison. Okay, all right, and okay. Now you're, Mr. Marshall. Now you're an advisor to the loan committee, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and how long you been doing that?
Well, the present committee would be like the last 3 years.
Okay, good, very good. Thank you for helping out. Now, Beth, you said you've been on board for 18 months?
Approximately, I think it was January 2017.
Okay, all right, thank you. Now, Harry, we talked earlier, you're a compost farmer, and you've been on board how long, Harry?
Do you have a paper that says when I got on the board?
No, I don't. So,
Well,
this isn't for prosperity. I was just curious. I'm trying to get a feel for the longevity and so
all right,
forth.
let me just give you a little history on my involvement, because I got involved in 1992 or 1993 when I was chairman of the board down in Washington County. And I know, I'm pretty sure in those days, the representatives on the Lake George, Lake Champlain Planning Committee were the supervisors from both Putnam and Dresden.
Okay.
And I believe it was almost attrition there, as when one was out of office, whoever was the supervisor from Putnam became member of the loan committee, and Dresden the same way. So it was Joe Rhoda and Bobby Banks, and now I'm not even sure. And so it turned out, and I believe that Bill Sheridan he was from Whitehall, I believe, was on that committee, and then when he chose not to be reelected as chairman, I kind of appointed myself. And so I guess I really appointed myself to the loan committee. I was asked by Bill Davidson if I would serve, and I agreed to serve on the loan committee.
Okay, thank you, Harry. Lou, how long you been on the loan committee?
Hard for me to say, because I was on that committee, and when I became chairman of the board, I sort of kind of stepped down. And then as soon as I gave up the chairmanship, which is in 2001, I was back on the committee. And if those appointments came, if I remember right, there were recommendations from the full board. Somebody would ask if they would be on the committee. At that time, everybody thought this was a big paying job. I don't know where that came from.
I think zero's not a lot of paying job, but not a big.
Well, together I've been about 28 years
Okay, thank you.
involved with, I started with Bill Davidson, so he was there.
So you were chairman at one time, and then you went to the loan committee.
I think I was on before I stepped down because I had too much to do at that time to 5 or 6 years while I was chairman of the board. And then after I got back in the supervisor position, I went back on both that and the IPA.
Okay.
So I've been somewhere in 25, 26 years.
Thank you for your service. And
But you know,
so-
one other thing is, it was very difficult as chairman of the board to get people to volunteer. Because first of all, they thought this was a big money job. You're going to make a lot of money. But there is no money. You don't get paid. You don't get volunteers. You don't get paid gas reimbursement. This is strictly a volunteer service. And it was difficult to get some people to even volunteer.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So when I was looking at the revolving loan committee, Harrison, you're on it. Brian Tounders, is it? Oh, you guys familiar with Brian? Nancy Rhodes.
Yes. Remember Nancy.
Okay. Well, that's who
Replace Nancy.
you replaced. Nancy. Okay. Maybe this isn't updated then. Lou Tessier, Harry Booth, and Tori Riley. Okay. All right. So that's just an old revolving loan committee report then on who's actually on. So a couple of the questions I had, by the way, I think I'm the only supervisor in the room that actually spent 10 hours going through 4 loans. I took 4 loans, went through them. I wasn't allowed to take them out of the room. I wasn't allowed to make a copy of them. I thought we were in Fort Knox or something. I was like blown away. But anyway, I could take a couple of notes, and I did. And here's what I came out, and I hope, I don't want to occupy all the time. Hopefully I'll be able to come back to me later, Mr. Chairman. But here's what I came out of, just some basic things. You guys have several requirements that you follow, correct, for approving a loan? They are listed. And of the 4 loans that I looked at, not one of them had all 7 requirements checked off. Now, you don't have a checklist, at least I didn't see. Now, maybe you guys get a checklist. Do you use a checklist?
We usually have that in mind during we actually meet with everybody. And so when we're during the meeting, we'll go down and make sure that we're all sitting there as we're asking those. Walter leads the meeting, or Beth, and those questions are asked during the meeting so that we're all there.
Okay.
For the most part, Doug, as far as...
Oh, okay. So that you do have a checklist. I guess one of my questions would be, if I'm going to give out a lot of loans, I'd want to see a business plan. Call me crazy, but that's on your checklist of requirements, and I couldn't find one business plan.
Well, I
Now-
don't think that's an accurate statement unless it's an existing business. So if the business has already been up for several years, established,
Right?
maybe we need a thumbnail sketch of what they're going to do, but doing a full-blown business plan, I apologize, probably wouldn't make a lot of sense or be best use of their resources.
And that's when we kind of refer to Ron as the accountant to kind of go through the tax returns. And we kind of really take some time before they come in, Doug, to kind of look at what they're saying versus what was on their return. There's a lot of pre-committee work before we actually have the person come in the room.
Okay.
And then Ron will give us red flags to ask for it while we're sitting there with the person.
Okay, I appreciate
Peter,
that.
I'm sorry.
Peter.
Peter,
All right.
yeah, Peter. Not Ron, that's Peter. Well, okay, and that makes some sense. On the other hand, though, I would expect to see some type of business projections or something, even with a current business. You're going to give them $100,000. Here's what we expect. Boom, 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 boom. You know, that would be what I'd expect. Okay, so I didn't see any business plans. I didn't see. Again, I only looked at 4 loans. I didn't see tax returns. In fact, one of the members even said, "Hey, we need to see the tax returns." I approved this with conditions. I got to see tax returns. Okay, but it was approved anyway. So the tax returns weren't involved with the loan, but it was still approved for him.
That's not true. There were tax returns in each of those loans.
Well,
I was going to say, I don't think we've ever...
Maybe you didn't have a full file. I don't
well,
know what you reviewed.
that
so I
may be.
apologize.
That may be.
We usually look for projections. We usually ask them how this is going to get paid back. We look at their projections versus their income and revenue, how they're going to... Because many times, what their projections are, as we dig down through, it just doesn't make sense. And we decline them based on that, or we'll ask them to go back through and clarify what exactly they mean with this because it's not making sense to us. So I apologize, Doug. I can't freely speak. I don't know which 4 loans you're talking about.
Well, I was trying to keep the names out. Just
Okay, I appreciate
Doug, can you wrap it up? We're just looking at the clock here.
Yeah,
Just if you got a couple of quick questions.
but there wasn't tax returns on this one loan. In fact, it said, please add tax returns. Again, I couldn't make copies of anything
Yeah.
because it was Fort Knox, but I
Normally
did
we
write
have-
down my notes, and I'm
Normally,
pretty...
we each get copies of those in all of our
Mhm.
packets, but at the risk of saving a tree, sometimes we'll ask for one copy at the meeting. We'll have,
Yeah.
I'll look at it and kind of defer, so.
I've got about a billion more questions, because one question leads into another question, which leads into another question. But I'll yield right now for other people, Mr. Chairman, and hopefully we can come back.
Try to come back to you at some
Thank
point.
you.
We have other people in the room. Mr. Wild, did you have anything?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. It's not really directed towards the loan fund, and I do appreciate your volunteering and for coming in today. But my question is more related towards the way the employees of the Regional Planning Board are treated with respect to Warren County. And I'm going to defer to Mr. Whitehead, who's been able to do some research on the information that was provided us over the last couple of days. But I've always been concerned about the lack of understanding and the lack of information that has been forthcoming about how the expenses are reimbursed by the Regional Planning Board. It appears as though there is a significant gap in terms of the amount of benefits that are provided that are supposed to be reimbursed in full as compared to what's actually happening. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to defer to Mr. Whitehead, who has more details on this, but it is a big concern of mine, that knowing the financial situation of the county and the original agreement that was made with this organization that all expenses were going to be reimbursed. It seems there's a gap, and we'll probably need to work on that in the near future. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will...
Thank you, Supervisor. I appreciate it. Did Supervisor Leggett, did you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No.
Okay, great. Supervisor Stroud, do you have anything?
No, I think it's very interesting, and we're learning more every time we meet with them, and it seems like the intent is good, and I'm starting to understand things. And the Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board seems to be involved in a whole lot of different things, and I know some of them are very good things. They're not the topic today, but I know that a lot of the grants that they secure go to the treatment of stormwater on farms in Washington County and on some roads in Warren County and probably many other things in the other counties. So I know a lot of good things come out of this organization, and I know that the AGFDC, for example, is one organization that's dependent on it. So we're learning a lot, and I want to thank you for coming.
Supervisor Hogan, any comments, any questions?
I do want to reiterate, thank you all for coming in today and taking the time out of your busy lives, and thank you for your service on this committee. I agree that what you're doing is of great value to our community. I echo Supervisor Stroh's remarks that every time we sit down with a group of people and talk about this, we learn more, and it's pretty illuminating. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Simpson.
I just want to echo my colleagues' sentiments. Thank you for being here, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Any other members of the Warren County Board of Supervisors that have any questions, comments? No? Any members of the Washington County Board? Any comments, any questions, any observations? Dana? Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Dana Half, Washington County Supervisor of the Town of Hartford. To the Loan Committee, how many members are there in 2018 of the Loan Committee? Is it 6 or 7 voting members?
Right now,
6. So these members are Harrison Sangster,
Yes.
Tori Riley, Harry Booth, Lou Tessier, Beth Hunt, and Brian. What is Brian's last name? Is there a Brian? Who's the 6th member?
Beth Hunt.
Who?
Beth Hunt.
I said Beth Hunt. I have Harrison Sangster,
Peter Marshall. Are you referring to me?
Peter Marshall.
I'm non-voting.
Are you Peter Marshall?
Yes, I'm Peter Marshall.
If you're not voting, then you're not the 6 members. Who are the 6 voting members?
There's 6 members total, 5 voting members.
5
Yes.
voting.
Yes.
It's a 10-member committee. You don't even have quorum with 5 voting? You don't even have quorum. Okay, how many of the Loan Administration Committee have seen your own bylaws of the Loan Administration Committee? None? You're kidding me. The Loan Administration Committee bylaws, not a single one of you have seen your own bylaws?
I might have, but I don't remember over the years.
Dana, I did. It's just then when I first took over for Mark, I don't, yeah.
Well, when, in Washington County, in our towns, when we operate our government, we have rules. And don't fall outside the rules, you get in trouble.
Sure.
You people don't even know your rules. Let me read here, for 1 second. Structure, the Loan Administration Committee shall consist of 10 members, 2 representing each of the 5 counties of Clinton, Essex, Hamilton, Warren, and Washington. At least one of the county representatives must be an elected official. Ms. Hunt, you're the only elected official, correct? Are you elected as the Hamilton County Treasurer? Okay, so if your committee is 10, quorum is 6, do we all agree on that? Of any committee, quorum is 1 more than half, right?
Mm-hmm.
So quorum would be 6. You have 5. You can do no business. You can't even meet.
And I just, maybe they expected me, the committee, and maybe I was approved that I could vote, but it's been my personal opinion that because I was not an elected member to the committee by any of the counties, that I abstained from voting.
Well, the committee says they shall have power to hold meetings, employ staff, which I assume that you are the staff. So you would not be a voting member.
Dana, I honestly thought John LaPointe was a voting member.
I did too.
I think he was in 2017, but not in
But we haven't
2018.
approved any loans in 2018 because of the...
Well, you would, and you wouldn't even know.
Dana, I think you make an excellent observation, an excellent point.
One
but
more question,
Clearly,
if I may.
clearly we need clarification. Okay, but I'm not shutting you up, Dana. You know, continue.
Okay, but one more question.
Yeah.
Is Mr. LaPointe a member of the Loan Administration Committee, Mr. Young?
Right now,
Yes.
as far as I know, no. He was taken off.
By who?
Mr. Henke?
No, you guys appoint yourselves. Mr. Henke took him off the Regional Planning Board. But your loan committee, you guys appoint yourselves. And you stated that the Regional Planning Board advises membership of it. Your minutes never say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. I appreciate it. Again, can we maybe get clarification on maybe the issues that Dana has brought up? Would be very appreciative. Anyone else from Washington County that would like to make any comments? Yes, sir. Go ahead. If you could identify yourself and...
Sure, it's Matt Hicks from Granville. Who's the chairman of the loan committee? Who's the vice chairman?
Vice chairman.
Who's the chairman?
There is no chairman. John's taken off.
Of the loan committee.
Of the loan committee, not the planning board committee. Who's the chairman of the loan committee? Your bylaws say you have a chairman, a vice chairman, a secretary, and treasurer. Who are the officers of the loan committee?
There are no officers. Equal representation from the committee itself.
So you have bylaws.
This whole thing has been through a process of attrition coming down for the past 35 years. As Lou was mentioning earlier, to be able to get somebody to volunteer to serve on this group, somebody would drop out, someone would be asked to replace them.
I'm not sure that's relevant, Mr. Young. The question is, you have bylaws, you have structure. My questions to you have nothing to do with the loans you approve or not approve, separate from what Doug's talking about. It's a governance issue.
Okay, we can look into that.
Fortunately, Mr. Henke, through his infinite wisdom, appointed Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Moore, and myself to serve on this planning board committee, and I want to publicly thank him. Thanks, Bob. So as we try to learn things here, governance is the thing I need to learn first. If we don't have a governance structure that we're following, how are you proceeding and doing the things you're doing? Based upon what Dana says, who are the 2 representatives from Washington County? Would it be Harry and Tori? though neither one of you are elected officials.
No, but John was on it. I thought John was on it.
So then you had 3 from Washington County. You and Tori and John, but the structure says there's 2 from Washington County.
Well, then I would gladly get off for somebody. I would gladly.
Not a problem.
5 years ago.
Not a problem. The question is the governance, and that's the basis of what's going on here, at least as far as I can see. And if you can't answer the governance questions, everything else you do comes into question. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Ed. If we can, again, Walter, question, if we can get this clarified as time goes by. Go ahead, Mr. Hank. If you could identify yourself for the public record, please.
No. No. Bob Hankey, the chairman of Washington County. I wanted to clarify something that apparently is maybe a misunderstanding on my part, maybe a misunderstanding on your part. John LaPointe's term ran out. I appointed 3 other people. Okay? I didn't fire John LaPointe, and I don't believe that my action of appointing 3 other people had anything to do with your loan committee. The loan committee seemed to be a separate and distinct thing. So if, I'd certainly, my action I don't think took John off your loan committee if he was on it. So I think that's something that, when we talk about governance, needs to be straightened out. He may or may not be, he may or may not wish to be on it. I'm not sure, but I don't, all I did was appoint 3, brand new, fresh guys to the planning board to try and, move us ahead a little bit and get us out of the quagmire and get things going here. That's all.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else from Washington County? Yes, sir.
Chris DeBolt, Washington County Administrator. I just echo some of the previous sentiments. Thank you to the loan committee members, and I think to Mr. Beatty's point, Mrs. Bramer's point, some of the other points that have been made. I think the issue here is not necessarily the mission of the loan committee or how it's functioned, but rather the lack of transparency and communication with the 2 county boards. And to something that was said earlier, and to Mr. Henke's point, his move to remove John from the regional planning board via your bylaws did nothing to his membership of the loan committee, because your bylaws say that the only way to get on the loan committee is to be voted on by the other members of the loan committee. And so you said earlier that you recommend somebody to the full board and they appoint them to the loan administration committee. That's not in keeping with your bylaws. So I think just for transparency and to make sure that things are being done, we just need to look at the current bylaws and make sure that you're doing things according to them. Because as Mr. Hicks said, when you can't answer those simple governance questions, or when you're saying appointments were made but you look at the documents and you can't have made appointments in that manner, it just doesn't look good. So there's a number of things we're working on. I'd be happy to work with Warren County folks. We just need to straighten out some of this technical stuff so that things are being done correctly. I guess that's just the point I want.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else from Washington County? Members of go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. I do have one question for the committee, and it's more of a historical rate of, let's say, default. And I know that the loans are high risk. It's been explained to us over and over again, and I see some value associated with that. But at the same time, I'm curious, over the years, what's the typical, let's call it failure rate, of the loans that you make? Is it, 5%? Is it 20%? Do we know?
I'd like to comment on that.
We've done, going back to day one, roughly $16 million in loans, and about 5% has been written off, 5.3%, about $800,000.
Okay, but more specifically, I'm just curious about the trend line. Right? Are we seeing more recently with a good economy, or less recently because the economy is good? Do we have any idea?
Startups definitely, Michael, which weren't surprising to us. There were smaller ones, but I think some of them are still paying back, even though they closed their business, they're still paying. So even though they're not on schedule for their normal payment, they're still making payments to pay that money back, albeit it might be $100 a month versus $350 payment. Is that fair to say?
And what I've looked at, the information I have. Like $8,000 loan has been written off within the last couple of years. Everything else that I've got that has been written off was a loan that was given more than 10 years ago. It was awarded more than 10 years ago. So, you know, to look at a trend, you know, I don't think there is a trend. I think basically there's a certain percentage that end up happen to be written off or partially written off.
But we've also done in those last few years, we've done a lot of those loans in partnerships with banks and other LVCs. So they've been, again, high risk, but they've actually been good loans.
But that doesn't reverse the positive impact that we've had on the economy with
Thank you. One more shot, Mr. Beatty. Members of...
Yeah, and then hopefully we'll come back.
Yes, sir. Well, let's have this gentleman here from Washington County. Yeah.
Alan Olet, Washington County Treasurer. First of all, I've had the privilege to work with some of this loan committee personally, professionally, and I hold Beth and Harry in especially high esteem, and I thank them for their service. Two things I have is, Walter, can you tell me what year the 5 counties adopted the bylaws of the Regional Planning Board?
The late 60s.
No, what year they adopted your bylaws? Not what year they established the board. What year did they adopt your bylaws?
I'd have to check into that.
It didn't, is the answer. Okay. The second thing that I have is I recently turned about 15 shades of red when my county attorney in open session let me know that as an ex officio member of the Regional Planning Board, under general municipal law, I don't count to vote and I don't count to quorum. Were you aware of that, Beth? I've sat at the table with you for 5 years now, making motions, raising my hand, voting yes, voting nay. Walter, have we had a quorum of the representative members? We have.
Yeah.
This December when we met, there was 8 non-ex officio members at that table.
I would have to go back and check the proxies.
Yeah. Proxies given to ex officio members?
All the proxies. Yeah. The proxies that were sent out and the proxies that were returned.
And the last thing I have is, as a board member, everything that I've learned about this, I've learned in the reputable Post-Star. I've heard nothing from you. I've heard nothing from leadership. And I've asked several times, how do we get a meeting called? You need to get in front of this. We have some serious public servants sitting around here whose reputations are on the line. They're being embarrassed publicly. It needs to stop. We need to get together. We need to right this ship, and we need to get it corrected immediately. Not in August, not in December, now. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Anyone else from Washington County?
Can I go again? Just one quick question.
Go ahead, Dana. Yep.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I won't filibuster.
Yeah.
To the loan admin committee, you have 6 members, which is the minimum quorum required. So therefore, on any vote, you need 6 yes votes. Everyone has to be unanimous or the motion fails. Has there ever been somebody that abstained or voted no? Has there ever been a point where there were not 6 yes votes to approve a loan? Mr. Sangster's nodding yes, that has happened. Yes. Were those loans then approved? Implemented?
I want to say there was definitely loans that were approved where I would have abstained.
But they were finally approved?
Related to my work, I would abstain from.
Okay, but would that loan then be, if there were 5 yes votes, 1 abstain, would that loan be approved?
That would be a Walter question. I mean,
My view right now is that there are 6 loan committee members. A quorum for loan approval would be 4.
No, there's 10. In your bylaws, there's supposed to be 10.
I agree with the bylaws have to be looked at and revised. I understand.
Instead of a question, let me make a statement. If you have less than 6 yes votes, the loan fails. It is not approved because you need 6 yes votes on any matter. If you have 10 people present, like you're supposed to, you need 6 yes votes. You only have 6 present. So if one abstains, you don't meet that requirement of yes votes. But I bet you if you go through your loans, there's multiple instances of where 2 said no, 4 said yes, it was approved. That's a violation of your bylaws. It's a violation of how meetings are going along.
Yes, and usually, Dana, for those, there's meetings that I have been attending, and as Beth mentioned, we all get the packets. If we don't approve it, we can write disapprove or approve with conditions. So my understanding, just from my own experience, when we're there and we're voting, I probably, good, bad, or indifferently, assumed that Walter's waiting to get all of our sheets because we all have to fill them out and sign them, whether we approve or disapprove, whether we're in attendance or not, that they all get collected and then that's gone with the review, because sometimes we've left and we approve with conditions and the applicant won't take the conditions. So I apologize, I probably should have followed up more with that and how many votes.
I have a feeling that if there's 4 yes votes, you approve it because Walter is thinking 4 is the quorum of 6. That's not how it works. The Port Henry, the All About You hair salon that Mr. LaPointe recused himself of because it was his daughter, you don't have enough votes to do anything. It was approved. There's some serious issues about how you are conducting your meetings, and we're talking about money. You really need to be careful because you have not been careful. I think those loans that have been approved are in violation of your bylaws.
Thank you, Dana. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Richie Moore, Supervisor of the Town of Fort Anne. Mr. Young, what's the earliest date that you could get a meeting set up for us as a...
To do a one-week notice.
Okay, so why don't you make it a point to have that meeting as quickly as possible?
Thank you, and it's something that I think we would like to be involved with also. Thank you. Doug, members of the public, or you...
Yeah.
Members of the U.S. Congress are normally given 5 minutes in committee, so
I haven't had my 5 minutes yet, have I, Chairman?
I don't know what clock you're looking at, but that's okay.
The one that's broken. Just a couple questions. Is it the loan committee's practice to give a second loan out and use that money to pay off a first loan? Okay, well, that's been done. Of the 4 loans I saw, that's been done one time. Is one of the loans had 3 people approved? Okay, so that doesn't even hit 4. Even if we went with the 6, with the 4, that doesn't even hit it. 3 approved, that was it. That's all that voted even. 1 was by phone, in fact. So, this is, again, I don't like, this is nothing against you people, because you're volunteering your darn time to try to do the best job you can. The bylaws are screwed up, they're not being followed, and this is so loosey-goosey, it blows my mind. But it's not your fault, and I really believe that. I'm going to have to say it's Mr. Young's total responsibility, because he's the administrator. He's the one that's supposed to follow the bylaws. He's the one to do all these things, and it's just not happening, and now we've got it's running amok. And I'm just hitting the tip of the iceberg. But the other question I had was, I'll refer back afterwards. So those 2 questions I had, which were, A, a loan was passed with only 3 people voting yes, and B, you guys did approve a second loan to pay off a first loan and to give additional money, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense either. But anyway, thank you, Mr.
Did you say you wanted to come back again? Is that what you said?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
After the public gets a turn.
Supervisor Stroud.
Just by the sounds of it, if you don't have a governance committee, maybe it's time to set up an ad hoc governance committee that would review the bylaws, review their currency and compliance with state laws and their functionality, and it just appears to be time to get something like that, to just kind of review everything and get everything back in order again. Just a suggestion.
Good. Thank you, Supervisor Stroud. Any members of the public that would like an opportunity? Travis.
Travis Whitehead, Queensbury. I want to say, too, I appreciate what you're doing. It is volunteer work. I do a lot of volunteer work as well. I think I see some of the same things here that got me involved in what I'm doing, and that is I think a lot of members here are asked to vote on things without knowing all of the details, all of the information. And what I've been trying to do over the last several years is to make sure that before the vote, people do have all that information in front of them. And I think you've learned some stuff today that you probably never knew before. And I'm still learning on this thing. I still have a lot more questions than answers here. But we focused on the voting. I'm not going to get into that, but all of this money originates from federal grants. And the Marvin audit clearly states that, it comes under Title IX. If you go look up what that means, these grants and these loans that come from them are supposed to be, the persons have to demonstrate a severe need, and jobs creation is paramount in this. I don't know if you've ever seen these reports that have been issued after the fact to the Economic Development Administration, revolving loan fund people, but they are filed by Mr. Young, and he does claim, I'm just looking at one loan fund out of 3 here, he claims that 664 jobs were created. So I guess I'd like to congratulate you if that's actually true, but on the few loans that I've been able to see, it looks like, maybe the individual involved would either retain a job or maybe be a new job for them. There may be 1 or 2 employees. 664 seems like a stretch. That's something that if you aren't already looking at these reports that are issued, I think maybe you should. I don't know if your involvement goes after the fact, after it's approved. Ms. Riley's shaking negative there. This is all what I'm saying. But even during the process, when, you say that you have to be turned down by a bank, which would be maybe that severe need comment in Title IX, still loans are out there to some well-known businessmen. And I don't understand how, so I won't mention, I'd like to mention these 3 names, but everybody knows them. And I can't understand how a bank could not lend these people money. Maybe Mr. Sangster would tell me, but so that's my comment, and I want to thank you for that. One other question, if someone could tell me, at least several of the people have said that these loans are actually, once they go out the door, they're actually administered by a bank. And the 2 examples I know happen to be Glens Falls National Bank. They actually, the money goes back and forth, to them just like any other mortgage would be. So I'm guessing, maybe you could tell me that, the Glens Falls National Bank has paid a fee to go ahead and take care, or maybe another bank, you choose another.
Do it for free. It's a contribution to the community. We service loans.
Okay.
We have no involvement with collections. We're just servicing, sending payments, processing payments.
Okay.
Kind of performing the back office function.
Okay. Well, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Travis. I appreciate it. Okay. Anybody else? Mark, you have anything? No? Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Wild. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to make an observation, and I sense that, to use a phrase, we might throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? I sense that there's some good value that this organization has done over the years, it continues to do, and we also have some volunteers that we don't want to lose, right? I think it's obvious about that. And it's easy to cast doubt, cast stones, cast fault on some of the processes that are occurring, and it's primarily from an issue of governance, not from an issue of effect of what the benefits are to the community. So I hope as we go forward, we focus on the governance piece, and we also focus on trying to help maybe find some additional volunteers. I know Mr. Beatty, I'm not going to volunteer you, nor am I going to volunteer myself, but I do very much appreciate the work that you guys have done, and I think we just need to do a little more homework and get some of this stuff straightened out. So,
Thank
Chairman,
you for your summary, Supervisor Wild. Do you have a summary, Supervisor Beatty?
Yeah, thank you. 10 hours, 4 loans, requirements weren't followed, but again, I'm not blaming any one person on this committee. I think your hearts are in the right place. I think our rules are so loosey-goosey that it leads to bad or questionable decisions, okay? And going forward, because I didn't have a chance to read through War and Peace, which was the 650 pages that were sent to us yesterday. I'm not a speed reader. I'd like to do 2 things. Number one is, could we put a pause on any loans going forward, okay, until we do get clear and defined governance, all right? I'd recommend that, and number one. Number two is, could we have another meeting? Because I still got a lot of different things I'd like to ask and delve into, and you know, we're all on a time constraint. So if you people would be open to having another meeting, I'd appreciate that.
Doug, anytime.
Thank you. Thank you. So that's good.
Thank you,
Mr.
Supervisor
Chairman.
Beatty. I think the suggestion by the treasurer of Washington County was a good one, that we convene hopefully as quickly as possible, a week in that time frame, that mutually both counties try to come up with some fundamental, understandable, definable, agreeable rules and regulations in terms of how we go forward. Okay, going forward is really the issue, that we address it and address it quickly. So I personally, did you want to say something? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Thank you. I'd like to request one thing. I think it will help the meeting the next time. If we can get a list of questions ahead of time so that we can come with all the appropriate information and provide maybe some clearer, better answers to help get us to a resolution. I think everybody in the room wants the same goal. We want to keep all of this active and going, but create the appropriate structure and governance in place to make sure that we're having appropriate votes and have the committee members that should be here. That's all I ask, and I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
Good. Does anyone, go ahead, Harry, did you have anything else?
Well, Peter, I'd just like to thank you for bringing this meeting together. I think I agree. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. There's some things that I found out today, even with the long time that I've been involved, that I wasn't aware of. And in some ways, Al, I am embarrassed about being here. Everything that I have done, as I said before, though, I did with the best intentions. I made my decision based on the information that I was given, and certainly feeling that what I had done was right and just.
Good. Thank you, Harry. And I think, did you? Go ahead.
I just want to find out at some point if one of us is going.
We should
It's me, because if you need an elected official on here, Bob, you find somebody and you just let me know, okay? But I'll be glad, Peter. I'll be glad to come to another meeting.
Okay.
And discuss this more.
It goes without saying, Harry, that we, and I hopefully speak for the Warren County Board, we don't want to lose any of our volunteers, okay? You guys have stepped up the table over the years, and we deeply, deeply appreciate that. So we're trying to right the ship. We're trying to ensure that going forward that the average person in the street feels comfortable that our volunteers and our elected officials are playing by the rules. So again, I thank you for your tolerance and your ability to absorb pain, and you've done quite well, and I thank you for that. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Peter, just one other quick thing. You mentioned Washington County. There are 5 counties involved in this program. Is there any include the other?
We certainly would hope so, okay, and why don't we try to make an effort to reach out. we will do the very best. And I think, Mary, I think some of the issues in terms of legal appropriate procedure, I think, have been duly noted, and we'll make an effort to move in that direction.
Sure. If I can make a suggestion.
Please do, yes.
I represent Warren County. I don't represent the Regional Planning Board. So my suggestion would be to reach out to your attorney and see what they think the proper procedures are, just because Warren County's interests may not coincide with Washington or Clinton or Essex or Hamilton, so it would be inappropriate for me to advise you on your procedures.
Okay. Go ahead, Al.
Mr. Chairman, my request is for a convening of the Lake Champlain and Lake George Regional Planning Board.
Okay. Great.
Not of the 5 counties.
Okay.
The planning board needs to get together as a board and start this process, getting the ship righted, is my request.
Okay. Well, we'll work on that mutually, and we'll try to get it done post-haste. Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to add? Are you okay? Or
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay. Very fine. Well, again, thank you very much. We did well. It was an hour and 15 minutes, and we thank you once again for your efforts. Everyone have a nice day. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.